Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now.
The trucker hats and the like baggy pants and the button ups.
What's happening? Halftime Hyphenate on this Monday. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here. Thanks for going through Providence theme week with us, Mr. Aaron Farley. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you? How was the trip?
Good. Yeah, this is the first we've recorded since I've been back.
Yeah,
it was good. Yeah, we pre-recorded a bunch of the Providence ones, and then I was in New Zealand for 2 weeks at a camp. It was like 2 festival weekends in this amazing mountainside or hillside in Wellington, New Zealand. It was insane. I'll give it a shout out. It's called a Camp Low Hum. So I think a low hum is 3 words, like a low hum.
Okay.
Probably like the sound you're hearing behind my voice right now, hum.
Yeah. A low hum.
And then, but he's done these camps in the past, and I think had taken a break for a while. It's this one guy, Ian. I was saying we should definitely have him on the podcast. He's an interesting guy. But he took some time off, and then he just fired it back up again after many years taking a break. So it was super cool. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah, it looked amazing. I mean, the photos that you were posting just looked insane.
Yeah. It was really just being out in wilderness, and there was tents. I wussed out and opted for a little motel just down the street because I was so jet lagged when I first got in. It was like I had a flight from LA to Vancouver with a quick layover, but you have to do all the immigration stuff and show your passport. Yeah. So I just had like 10-minute layover, and then Vancouver to Auckland, which I think is 14 hours. So I think it's like 3 hours, 4 hours from LA to Vancouver, then another hour layover, and then Vancouver to Auckland, 14 hours, and then another like 2 or 3 hour layover in Auckland, then Auckland to Wellington. So I think that all in total is about 20 to 24 hours of travel from when I left the house to when my head hit a pillow.
Yeah.
I was awake for about 24 hours. Yeah, it was intense, but it's super fun. But everything feels like a dream after that. Like when you're so jet lagged.
Yeah.
Then you get in a car and you're like, wait, I'm in like Lord of the Rings now. I'm like in this mountain. right when you get off the airplane in Wellington too, they have all these literally Lord of the Rings like props. There's like giant eagles from The Hobbit, and there's a dragon when you go to check in, guarding his treasure. It's crazy. It really feels like a Disneyland kind of moment.
Oh, I bet. I mean, I bet that was like the biggest, like worldwide, like the biggest thing to happen to New Zealand as like culturally, like world culture, is the Lord of the Rings being there.
Yeah, I think people can go on Hobbit tours. I was looking up little stuff. They have like a whole kind of like cottage industry of tour of
literally
of Hobbit. Yes, yeah.
Literally a cottage industry, little cottages.
Yeah. You can go to the Shire. You can see all the stuff. I think there must be. I didn't do it. I never really got that far into the Lord of the Rings. I remember when they came out, I was like, oh, this is cool, but it was never really my like. I didn't go crazy about it.
Yeah, I have a tough enough time with like Marvel or anything like that, like keeping like which character's which. I get into Lord of the Rings and I'm like, I mean, it looks pretty. I don't know what's going on though. No idea.
Yeah. Our oldest writer is 10 and he just got into Dungeons and Dragons. Somehow,
oh, wow.
Somehow he has a friend who was doing it, and then he like wanted to be the dungeon master. So he's been doing it now, or trying, and we've been supportive and trying to figure out how to like I don't know, you got to read books, you got to get a map or some dice with a bunch of sides on them. But I tried showing him Lord of the Rings. I was like, maybe this is like Dungeons and Dragons, and he was bored within 5 minutes. But he likes the Dungeons and Dragon movie. There's a new movie. But sorry.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. There was from a couple of years ago, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm that just made me think that if there were no cool dice, like 20-sided die or whatever, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think anybody would have gotten into Dungeons and Dragons.
It was all about the
I think
dice.
I think the crazy dice pulled everybody in, and then people either stayed or they left. I mean, that's definitely why I played when I was a kid for, I don't know, I probably played it like 5 times, and my friend was like trying to figure out how to be the dungeon master, and he was actually pretty good at it, I think. But I also never knew what was going on. Again, with the characters and everything, I'm like, I had my little character, and we'd go on these things, and you had your hit points, and you'd roll the dice. But the whole time I was like, is he just? So wait, is he just making this up? Is
Yes.
he just making this up? But he's also kind of playing. So I'm like, is he? Do I have to make sure that like I stay on his good side so he doesn't like, so he doesn't put me in some crazy realms when we're playing Dungeons and Dragons? And I'm like, wait, I just can't win this game. What is going on?
Yeah,
What is happening?
I don't think there's any way to win the game. I think
Yeah.
you win if you waste 20 hours playing it, then you've won.
Why do I keep ending up in the cave with all the orcs, and my other friend is on some journey somewhere, and I'm just stuck over here?
Just over here in the cave. No, Aaron, stay in the cave.
Yeah. You need 75,000 hit points to defeat the orc. Like, what?
Oh man,
why? How?
I shouldn't have beat him at basketball at school.
Yeah,
now he's
right.
taking it back out of me at D&D. Oh my god. Yeah, I always remember going to like comic stores and stuff as a kid, and they would always have the kind of like the Dungeons and Dragons stuff behind the counter or some other little area, and it always seems way too like teenagery or even like adults, kind of.
Yeah.
There's always the guys with like the bad mustaches that would hang out over there by the Dungeons and Dragons side of things, and I was like, I don't know. This isn't for me. I'm going to stick to like Spider-Man or Superman. Yeah. I got this is my world over here. That the whole thing, they got the different things with the dragons and the dice.
Yeah.
The velvet pouches and things.
Yeah. So they talk with so many words.
Yeah.
There's like all those extra words that they're talking with.
It definitely just seemed like almost like akin to like stoner culture too, or something like in the late 80s or like 90s, as like a kid and was like, I think this is like blacklight posters and like, I don't know. There's like something else going on here. It's not.
But instead of weed, they got into like trolls.
Yeah, this is probably the nerdiest guys there were, but they seemed intimidating to me when I just wanted to buy my my Aliens versus Predator, comic books.
I mean, thinking about it though, it is kind of the same like conversations as like a stoner conversation where the stoners are talking about like, man, can you believe, man, our bodies with. There's just all these things in our bodies and they're moving around and they're like that we like live, and we're like living, but what are we doing? Are we living or someone else? And then the D&D guys are like, can you imagine that there's trolls and then there's orcs, right? And you got the orcs and the trolls, but then you have all these knights. Knights have swords, but trolls have extra strength. It's kind of the same conversation.
It's not very far
just
off.
One is weed and one is fantasy. They're both fantasy, I guess.
The forms of escapism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
Same mustaches too.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And lots of accoutrement, lots of tools, lots of extra little accessories and special things.
Yeah, the glass pipes, a lot of glass. I mean, I feel like you either have like the little glass pipes or you have like little figurines.
Yes. Yeah. What was it? Pewter. There's a lot of pewter involved.
Oh, yes. Yes, pewter dragons.
Pewter is such a good word. Hey man, how are those pewter figures coming? You got the good pewters?
Sick.
Yeah. Cool. We got to paint them.
Sick.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So today we were talking about last week's episode with Pat Graham, photographer extraordinaire, legendary. Pat Graham, how familiar were you with him? I mean, this is kind of up your alley. Oh my God, this is the book.
I wanted to say I've got the Pat Graham book.
Amazing.
It was awesome. I thought that the interview was amazing because I really don't know much about Pat Graham. The interesting thing for me is, as a photographer, I knew so many of his photos and I didn't know anything about him until until like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I recognized the name. I knew the name from like, oh wow, who are all these cool black and white photos of all these epic bands. Yeah,
and I knew like the Bikini Kill photos and the Fugazi and Modest Mouse. I mean, like, because I was a big like I grew up in Washington, so we saw Modest Mouse a couple times um, before they blew up when they were like big locally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew photos from those times because they were Modest Mouse photos, but I didn't know that it was the same guy.
Yeah, I had no idea too that there was like a DC connection. That Isaac had
Yeah,
moved to
no, me
DC
neither.
and they were roommates and
When he
that
was
kind of
15.
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, there were so
Yeah,
many parts of the biography of the story and all those things. It was like, oh, I just thought this guy was just, some epic photographer. They're just taking pictures, of everything all the time. But it seemed like a
yeah,
very, very personal sort of journey.
yeah, definitely. Well, and I did I did feel like multiple times he was speaking directly to me from the photo thing, because when he was talking about starting to shoot bands, like I felt so similar in those ways of like, because I'm not a pushy person, and I feel
No.
like to be a great live photographer, usually you kind of have to be like a pushy, out for yourself person, and not even in a bad way of like, you just know what the photos are and this is going to be an amazing photo. I'm going to get myself in front of it. I don't care. And you shoot. And that's like, I mean, probably like a Glenn Friedman type
Mm-hmm.
of like, get right on stage, get there, and those photos are iconic forever. And I was always like, well, I don't really want to get in front of the band. I don't want to ruin it for anybody who's in the front. I don't want to like put my camera in front of people's faces just consistently, because I don't want to put myself above the performance of the band in the sense of like, well, this is going to be great for me 10 years from now, you know?
Yeah.
And so I always had, when he was talking about feeling that same way, um, I, I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's how I felt. Same way of
Yeah.
like, and really like, okay, I'll get on the stage a little bit, but I gotta make sure I don't want to ruin it for the band. I don't want to like ruin the song. I don't want to. And then finding it like, once you get comfortable with the band or the people or whatever, then you start like, hey, do you mind if can I stand over here? And usually the band's like, dude, I don't care.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. I don't even notice you're there.
Yeah.
Like, what are you worried about? Stop worrying. Here's a beer. Have a beer. Jesus.
Yeah. Just hang out.
Honestly,
Yeah.
and honestly, I think that's what even a lot of those situations, that like nervousness was often the reason why I was like, oh, I'll just have a beer and then a couple beers, and then you're like, wow, now it's really easy. Being a photographer is fun. This is easy. Woo!
All the pictures, or half the pictures turn out blurry. You're like, oh wait, I wasn't even paying attention to what I was
Oh my
doing.
god. Yeah. Well, I felt really comfortable at the same time.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
Well, it's funny from the
But yeah,
band.
those it was great to hear it from his perspective.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, it's funny. I was just gonna say from a band perspective too. It's like the thing of like, you see photographers, and there's an instant sort of thing of like, okay, they're like, well, this guy's taking a picture. I don't want to
Yeah.
look stupid. But
Yeah.
at the same, but I think I think it has changed though, just with digital. And pictures
Yeah.
and cameras and everybody having cameras on their phone, then it just
Mhm.
I feel like there's a sense now of just like wherever you go, there's pictures, and
Yeah.
the majority of pictures are going to be bad pictures. That's just
Yeah.
how life works. That's just
I
what
can
it is.
imagine.
Because there's 10 pictures are taken every minute of a thing or
Yep.
whatever you're doing. If you're doing something that there's people that you're inviting an
Mhm.
audience to, you're inviting people to take a million bad photos and post them all on Instagram and tag you in them, and then
Yeah.
show them to you like, hey, look at what I took. You're like, oh, I look horrible, thanks.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
it's like, wow, that's cool, that's fine. I don't
Yeah.
know, you know what I mean? I think that really changed everything, where the idea of having somebody with like a film camera on stage and or even a video camera, I think back even when we started, when No Age started, there were people would want to like videotape the whole thing, and
Yeah.
sometimes that would be annoying because they would be like try to put the camera in your face. I'm like, this isn't a music video shoot.
Yeah.
We're trying to play
We're
a
not doing
show.
a documentary.
Yeah, I'm trying to play a show here, and or just even that feeling too of too many people on the side of the stage. You kind of look
Yep.
over and you're like, wait, like, okay, hold on, this is freaking me
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Or the worst part is it actually appeals to your vanity, and you go, hold on, okay, this guy's got a photo. I'm gonna like make a
Yeah.
sweet like guitar face over here and make sure this guy catches this.
How high can I kick my feet up?
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's almost like, you know, you're doing just fine until somebody comes around like, oh wait, I gotta really turn it on here. Hold on, you got.
Yeah.
And I think that's the worst part, because you end up hating yourself. You're like, why was I doing that? I was such a cheeseball. I was like, you know what I mean? That's probably the unsaid thing amongst performers, is that they actually probably are too hammy for the camera, which fucks up the show, because they're not, instead of performing to the audience, they're performing to the camera.
You mean all those no age photos where you're sticking your tongue out at the camera?
But you know what I mean, though? I think that's probably the thing that the performers hate the most, is they hate themselves and how they act or look when there's a camera around.
I mean, that's probably that's probably the majority of the time, on and off stage.
Right? Yeah.
Like, most performers probably hate themselves 90% of the time.
I would say,
regardless.
So. Yeah. They're in a horrible self-obsessed narcissist, right? They only think about themselves, and they hate it all the time.
Yeah.
So the idea, if you're a photographer or anybody interacting with a band in a live situation, know that it has 0% of anything to do with you, and 100% the artist is only thinking about themselves 100% of the time.
Well, and it's so interesting too, because I was just looking. It made me go back and grab this book, and his book is the Silent Pictures, which is a great book. I don't even know when it came out. It came out a while ago.
He talked about it, I think, in the interview a little bit. I think, right? Because he self-published it, or is it?
I guess. Well, let's see.
Or he's
Akashic books.
Okay. No, they're great. They're a really good book company.
Let me see. I'll tell you exactly when. 2007.
Okay. I just got another. They do a lot of great photo books, and even just kind of in literary or nonfiction books too.
Yeah, and it's an awesome. I mean, it's such a cool book, and but looking through it, like, I remember these photos from back then, and everybody was so like iconic, and you're looking at these like, oh my god, it's Ian MacKaye, it's Guy, it's like Isaac, it's all these people, and then you look at it now, and I'm like, oh my god, they're kids. They're like little kids, and they're playing in basements. It's so weird to like look at it 25 years later and see all those images. I'm like, oh my god, they're all like these little babies having fun in dirty rooms, and you know, long exposures and all this stuff. And it really makes me think of that. I mean, especially back then, because I was in Portland in like 98 and started shooting some bands, but really like having a camera and being able to actually take photos that were okay was like kind of a calling card to get. It'd be like, hey, come take photos of this show. We're going to play this show at this place, and I put you on the list. And it really was like, oh, this is like I have like access to all this stuff all of a sudden. And I was like, and it really is. And I don't know how much it is. I'm sure it's the same now. I know like there's a lot of photographers who are still, you know, digital or not. There's still like, if you can make good photos and they're usable for things, like, you're in. You know, because it's so hard.
There's still a use for that. I would say almost more, because there's like a content machine that just eats up photos every day. So if you can
just need photos.
Yeah.
Well, and so many bands now, I see, you look at their press photos and like literally they're framed with an iPhone. Like, really, no one had a digital camera or a lens.
or a light, some kind
of
light to make it somewhat interesting.
Yeah, some kind of lens or some. Yeah, so I guess you're probably right. Probably now it's just as much as like really is about producing something, like being a part of something, but also being a piece, like a band or an artist or whatever. They always need that trusted person who's also doing like visual stuff. And you know, it's like how a lot of bands also have the same producer for a long time, or you guys had the same sound. You go on the road with your sound person, you know, it's like, and you get those people of like, it's about the band, but it also is about this, like, there's also an like ancillary group of people around the band that are trusted people that can also like help promote that thing. And that's something that I never understood back then. I was kind of dumb. about it, or never, I don't know, never thought about it. Never thought about like, oh, I wonder how this whole thing works. What's an A&R person? What's a manager? You have a manager? I don't even know what a record. How does a record label work? I was just like, I'm just here to take photos. Fun. I love fun.
Yeah.
And now I look back and like, oh well, I could have made something out of that relationship maybe.
It could have been a
if
job.
I would have actually thought about it.
Oh,
but
man.
I think that is such a cool thing though. And you see it now, like our friends' kids are in bands and their friends are starting to become photographers, or like their friends like, oh, I bought a soundboard, or like I bought a little PA,
Yep.
And I remember I shot photos of Dave Rat one time.
Legend.
And legend. And it was in I was actually for Guitar Center. And so it was like a big, like this interview thing. And they were interviewing him, and I was shooting photos, but in his warehouse where it was just like,
it's like Indiana Jones, the Indiana
PA
Jones
speakers,
warehouse, like a football
insane.
field long, filled with speakers. Yeah,
everything sprayed with Rat. And like
Rat
I remember
sound.
he gave me Rat sound. He gave me a free pair of Rat sweatpants that I wore for years, which was amazing. And he's like the nicest guy ever. But he also was like, yeah, no, I started doing sound when I was 14 or something. For Black Flag.
Yeah.
Like I had a little soundboard, and I figured out how to hook up the speakers and the mics, and was like, okay, I guess I'm the guy. And so then he just was the guy. And now he does Coachella, and he does like Rage Against the Machine, everything. He's Red Hot Chili Peppers, like you name it. He's the sound. He does the live show sound for everyone.
Yeah, but you have to have a little bit of that commercial mindedness too of it. Like, oh, cool, this is a service. I can do this. Like, I think that's where it gets harder with photos, because it's a little bit more amorphous, or this kind of feeling of like, I can't really charge somebody for taking their photo, or like, how do I sell the photo back to the band if they're in the photo? I tried asking him a little bit about that too, because I think he said like he gave the photo to Bikini Kill. We're like, oh, cool, this is going to be the cover of our record. And he's like, cool. And then it's awesome. Like, well, do you own that photo, Pat, or does the band own the photo? Like, does that? Or it's not like there's really royalties on those types of things unless you create that sort of thing. Is your dog going in? Does your dog want to go in or out?
Just give me 1 second. We'll edit this.
I'll keep it in. I'll riff. I thought, Pat, hopefully everybody's gone to his website and seen all of his photos, so kind of knows what we're talking about. I mean, this is kind of legendary DC, live music photographer. I think there's a few photos of Bikini Kill, Nation of Ulysses, Fugazi. And then it seemed like as the 90s went on, then he kind of embedded himself on the road with Modest Mouse. Yeah, and just kind of became their tour photographer, which I'm sure at that point too was like they were friends, but also I imagine he was able to like get on staff or something, or have some kind of like royalty or per diem or something that he was being paid to just document everything they did.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing about photos is unless you sign your rights away, you own the photo. So it's kind of like
if you take
recording.
The photo, you mean, if you take the photo, if you're the person who presses click on the camera, you own that unless you've signed it off saying I don't own this.
And then usage is a different thing. So like you own the copyright to that photo. I mean, technically, I don't know. There's a lot of little technicalities. Like if you don't send in and say that it's officially copywritten, I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff, but like basically. I don't know. There's basically if you took the photo and it's in your possession, even if it's of somebody else, it's yours. You own the rights to it, but you don't own the rights if someone else's likeness is in it. So if it's a band, you can't sell that photo for anything commercial.
Oh, I see.
But you own the rights to it, so no one else can use it without your permission. So technically, if a band used your photo and you said they couldn't use it, even if they're in it, they can't do that because you own the photo. But you also can't sell it for you can't sell it to a magazine. Technically, there's some gray media is different. You can't sell it to anything commercial, like a brand.
Make a t-shirt. You couldn't make a t-shirt off of it or something.
You can't make a t-shirt. You can't make a brand. But
you could make a
the
print.
t-shirt thing is weird.
You can make an art print, though, right?
You can make an art print.
Yeah.
you, I think probably you can't make a t-shirt. You could technically, I don't know. There's a gray area if you're selling the photo
Mm.
as a photographic piece of art.
On paper.
That's
Yeah.
that's considered your art. So that's separate. If that art is selling another product or another thing, which
Mm-hmm.
technically if the t-shirt is for a different brand, then yes, I couldn't sell that to like Volcom and then they would have like a Bikini Kill photo
Right. Right.
on their t-shirt. But I could sell a t-shirt of my own photography that says Aaron Farley photo because
Okay.
it's my photo
You're promoting
because it's not a
yourself.
different
Yeah. Yeah.
brand.
Got it.
Technically, I mean, those are like there's a little gray area in there, but I could sell print. So if the photo was taken, regardless of the band, if the band knew I was there, if it was in a live venue and they didn't know I took the photo, I could sell the photo as my own art as
Got
a
it.
print.
Got it.
But I couldn't sell it through another like a third party or anything. So
But
photography is weird that way. So I could also license it to like Getty as
okay.
my own photo, and it was like I could license that photo of Bikini Kill, but that could only be used in a media, like a magazine article of the band. So it's like, oh, we're doing and I could get paid for that because they're licensing, but the band doesn't get paid for that because they're licensing the photo, they're not licensing the band.
It's insane.
Yeah,
And I
so it
imagine
is
all
weird.
of that. And I imagine all that changes too, just with with like more Photoshop and more digital sort of things. Like, if you took a thing of a thing of a thing, like
Yeah.
the iterations of it. We had a funny thing with No Age early on in our early days of. Let me think how this went. So we did an EP. I forget who put it out. Maybe Callie and Brian Ray of Teenage Teardrops one. I think it was,
Hmm.
but it was Dean and I were shot by a photographer, and we were like swishing our faces back and forth. So we had like this funny
Yeah.
looking photo.
Yep. I remember
And
that.
the person took the photo, and then we had our friend Amanda who painted the front of the smell. For the
Hmm.
Weirdo Rippers thing, we had her do a painting of that photo. So she did a really large, like maybe 8 foot by 6 foot, like painting of the photo that someone else took.
Yep.
And then we had Josh White take a
Yeah.
photo of the painting and the painting was done
Yeah.
of a photo.
Yeah.
And then we used we used the photo of the painting of the photo as the cover art. So the cover art is a picture of a
Yeah.
painting. But
Yeah.
the painting was done but the painting was based on of a
Fun.
photo.
Yeah.
So we did not accidentally or
You
naively,
didn't credit the photographer.
innocently, the first original photographer who took
Yeah.
the swirly face photo.
Yeah.
So I think we retroactively, and he wrote us like, what the fuck, guys? You're using my
Yeah.
picture as your thing. We're like, oh no, it was our friend Amanda did a painting of it.
And he's like, nope.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's still my photo. So then we did retroactively give him credit for that. But I think it was even more confusing because it said like painting by Amanda Vieta, like photo by Josh White.
Josh White.
Yeah. And he was like, where am I? You guys screwed me over on this one. It was like, oh no, I didn't mean, we weren't trying to, we had no thoughts
Malice.
of that. But it was just very, just kids, like just making weird art,
Totally.
like making weird stuff, and not really thinking about the iterations of it all, and crediting the different things of it. So
totally. And when we had the gallery, we had a friend of ours made a painting that was the idea of it was taken from this woman's photo, this commercial photographer, but he had kind of fixed it. I don't know. He'd changed it just a touch, or he like took out the background and then he painted. And she called and threatened to sue us.
Oh,
she's like, you can't that's my photo. Blah 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 blah. I mean, she was like off the rails, like so pissed. And I'm like, this painting is $200. I mean, I don't know what you're going to sue us for. Right. And like, no, you actually can't do that. Like, because it's an original piece of artwork. So like you could try, but we're not selling. Yeah. But she was pissed. But then turns out she would get pretty angry pretty quickly about a lot of
that
things.
was part of her.
That
That's
was
part of her
her MO.
personality. Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing that I've come to realize too, as I've gotten older, I think I would get hung up on these kinds of things at some point, or it'd be like, oh, but you're not allowed to, or this, or they're even sampling, or
Yeah.
covers, or all these things. The truth is, it's only a problem when the thing you do is super successful.
Yeah,
Like if
totally.
you're operating in a very low profit, or very, like you said, a $200 painting,
Yeah.
there's really no legal
Yeah.
recourse to go
Yeah.
after somebody who's not really making a lot of money. Like even that our EP or whatever, it was not,
Yeah.
we didn't sell millions of them. We sold maybe 5,000 of them. It's
Yeah.
in this bigger scheme of things, that's not a lot. So there's and even like, with like songs or like different things, you could sample things, you could do all kinds of weird things. And it's only an issue if it's super successful. Like,
Yeah, totally.
all the lawsuits you hear are people going after songs that are like number one songs that are like,
Totally.
those people have to cover their butts. But if you're operating in a kind of a DIY sort of, zone, not that it's right or legal versus illegal or anything, but it's more of a non-issue because no one is coming after you.
And I think that is bringing it back to Pat Graham and like those days, I think that, and that's how I felt too. It's like I was working as a photo assistant for, like, I had a full-time job, which was great. So I could just go out and shoot bands and I could process film, and I didn't have to make money from my photos. I didn't have to hustle a ton at that point. And so I could just hand photos off to bands, and honestly and I think Pat was talking about that too. He's like, yeah, I would pick like 3 photos and I would just give them to the band. And I think that there's something about that gifting also. It's like, hey, you allowed me, you gave me access to you. So here's my present to you, is like these images.
Kind of quid pro
Go
quo.
ahead and use it. Like, this is what,
let me shoot you and I'll give you the photo. That's
totally. And I think that that's how that, like, being in your 20s, DIY, like that whole thing works, is that like nobody's really making money, and you're hoping like maybe someday you would make money, but you don't even know what that even means. Like, oh, I'm going to have a heating bill someday that that I have to pay all by myself. I don't have to split it with 9 people in one house, and like find out that the one guy is like taking all the heating bill money and drinking it away on the weekend, and you haven't paid the heating bill for 3 months. Like, none of that, you don't even know any of that stuff is going to exist.
No.
But that you're able to do these like trades back and forth. And then, I remember, like, I went on tour with Dios. Remember Dios?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And those guys were awesome. And they're like, we can't pay you anything, but we'll give you per diem, and then you can use keep the photos, use them. Just let us get our, get first pick, and then whatever else, if you need to sell stuff, whatever. And, I went out with them for a couple times, and it was awesome. It was super fun. The van broke down in Texas for 3 days, and stuck in Denton, and missed shows in Philly because of union stuff. And it's like so much stuff. But I think that all those stories started flooding into my head when he was just talking about some of the touring and some of the awkward, like, it's a weird place. Like, I remember being with those guys. We had gotten stuck on like the New Jersey Turnpike or something, and we got turned around, and it added like a half an hour to our thing. And we saw the union guys closing up the doors on the backstage first load in for 1 minute. And we're like, no. And they're like, nope, sorry guys, you missed the show. That was it. Like, there was union time. We didn't get the gear in. And I had to sit at like a pizza parlor with them while they were just getting berated on speakerphone. And I was just sitting there. It was so uncomfortable. And I couldn't take any photos because I was so embarrassed for them. And I was so, or not embarrassed for them, but like, I felt so like bad that I was like, oh, I should be taking photos of this. They all look so sad and like deflated, and like we had already missed all of Texas because of the van breaking down. And then we had to kick it like really quick to CMJ. And it was like it was like an off.
Oh no, from Texas, like, we were going to out the East Coast.
We were going out from CMJ to go to these shows and to come back, I think. And it was like supposed to be this big, I feel like it was in Philly. I don't remember where it was. but it was just like, oh my God. But then as a photographer, there's the one side of me going, this is a great photo. Take the photo. Put your camera up. Take the photo. But then as like a friend, it was like, oh, I don't want to see them go through this, and I don't want to document them going through this. So it is that interesting. Like that's the weird photo conundrum of these situations too, of like where do you fit in this thing? Are you like friends? Are you part of the band? Are you just documenting and it's just like you're separate, you're completely separate? So it's cool to hear him kind of be like talk about in being in between those like having obviously amazing friendships with everybody, but also like it's also work, and part of it is you're documenting this for later, and part of it is you're taking pictures that are going to be used now, and part of it is for marketing and advertising, and part like there's all these little like wheels that are turning.
Offshoots. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And the people that do it the best for the
job.
longest are the people that can like manage all those things and keep going. And really it's about like hustling. It's like how do you get $100 the most times? It really is.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, how do you make $100? Well, you start with $1,000. You need $1,000 worth of gear to make $100 a photo.
Yeah, but if you're lucky, maybe $75 a photo.
Yeah.
Well, I remember back then, like I remember shooting that band, Q and Not You.
Oh yeah.
Remember them?
Oh yeah.
And on stage, like I don't know, somewhere in Portland, and it was just like I probably have 4 frames. I don't know. And a friend of mine was from Olympia, and she's like, "Oh, I know them. You should email them and tell them." And I was like, "Yeah, I have these photos, like $300," and and they're like, "Yeah, no, that's not going to happen."
Oh,
and like we love the photos, but like that's way too like at this point. And to me, that was like a really big band, and I was like, "Oh, they're like." This is a big band to me, but they're like shoestring. Like, I mean, maybe like we could get you some passes for the next show, whatever. It's like, no, we don't have money. You think we have money? We don't have money.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and it was my first like, oh yeah, okay,
I'll get,
right. None of these bands have money. They're like $10 a day.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. Well, because it costs money when your van breaks down, or
oh my God,
like everybody's eating at crappy places. It still costs $10 a head to eat at least. And so
way more expensive to be in a band than it is to be a photographer. Way more.
I'll get emails sometimes from people who are so sweet, but it's kind of unsolicited. Just email like, "Hey, you're playing the city. I'm a photographer. I can come out to the show." And it's like, cool. I could put you on the list. Like who's going to say it first? Like, are you going to ask for money? I'm not going to offer you money because, I don't have, but even if I did have money, I don't know you, you're just a random person. You're like, "Hey, check out my website." You're like, "There's a lot of bands on there. Photos look great. They're all in focus."
Totally. Not sure what we would do with them. Yeah.
But it's the kind of thing where you're like, yeah, I'm sure that, it's great to have a photo, but it's an awkward position to be in as a band too. That kind of feeling of like, this guy's got a great photo. Like,
totally.
When next time I need a great photo, I can say that guy's got a great photo. And then if there's the only time I think we've, the label will pay for one is for like a headshot or what do you need, a promo. I've seen money go out for that, and then magazines or media. You know what I mean? If there's a magazine doing an article about you, they'll pay the photographer the day rate or whatever the day fee to shoot you.
Yep. And then they'll license photos for album stuff or artwork, like album artwork.
Yeah. But you gotta be pretty ballering by that. Or as a band, you have to be well known if they're gonna use something like that.
And it's a weird thing. It's very weird. I've been out of the music thing for long enough to where I think the last stuff that I've done is just with you.
Yeah. Oh, you've shot so many great no age photos too. I mean, we did that. Awesome
I have some good ones. Some good ones. Big fan.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of you. Big fan. We do a lot of fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think those days, like when you'd get that email of like, "Hey, so I saw this photo of, Queens of the Stone Age, and do you think we could use it?" And you're like, "Oh my God, it's happening." And then you send it in like, "Ah, it didn't work. That didn't work out." But good luck.
Well, like from a label.
Like, oh man.
From a label person
I used to get a lot of random because I used to shoot for NME for like 3 years.
Oh,
I
right.
shot a bunch of stuff for NME, and so I ended up having. I mean, they were good at the. It was during the years where Southern California was big in London
Yeah.
or in
Oh, right,
England,
right. Yeah.
and so I get they wanted a lot of bands that sunny, and then English bands coming through. They would want to shoot on the beach and stuff.
And would they pay
Um,
you for like the day or just buy the photos? Like
yeah,
would they
it's no, just a day rate.
just a
I
day?
don't remember.
And would they
Enemy
own
was like $300 a
would they
day for
own
a
all those
regular.
photos? Like everything you shot for
So
them on that job belongs like a work for hire thing?
they don't own. So I own the photos, but
Okay.
they had the rights for distribution.
I see.
But they turned out they were a bit sketchy, and they also had multiple magazines kind of under the same
Publishing arm.
thing.
Yeah.
And so they would supposedly you'd supposedly get paid. You were supposed to get paid if they reused the photos later on.
I
And
see.
then I would open up, I didn't get NME. And then so I'd have to go find them, and then I'd get one, and then I'd look and I'm like, wait, that's a photo from like 2 years ago. I didn't get paid for that. And then email them and blah blah blah. And so then they had everybody sign new contracts, and I kept shooting for them,
In
and I never
perpetuity.
signed it.
Oh, okay.
No, I just never signed the contract. So I'm like, I mean, I don't care if you guys don't pay me, but I shot like Neil Young for them, and
Amazing.
some other stuff. So like I shot Neil Young and Daniel Lenoir
Incredible.
together
Where was that? Where was that?
in the forest
no, not even
outside
live.
of San Francisco.
It was like a setup.
No,
like photo. Wow.
Yeah, he was like Neil Young was like 4 hours late. Daniel Lenoir was there early, I think. Neil showed up late. At first, he wanted to shoot in his. It was like the day. So it was one of those where it was like it was a big enough shoot. This wasn't even for NME. What was the other?
Uncut.
What was the uncut exactly?
Yeah.
And he showed it was like the day of, and I was just flying up to San Francisco. So it was big enough to where they like got plane tickets. So it was like flew up to San Francisco, and I had 6 hours, and then I was flying back that night, and it was right in the just in the forest right there, like an hour from the airport. And so we went up there, and it was at this little cafe, and we were waiting, and then got a call that he's like, I think Neil wants to shoot in his electric Cadillac.
I think you've told me the story.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay. He's big on like electric, vehicles and stuff. This was probably
Aaron,
10 years ago.
My Cadillac. I got a Cadillac over
So
here.
I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I don't care. I mean, it's Neil Young. Let him do whatever he wants. And then, they're not asking me.
Right.
By the way, they're not asking me. They're telling me.
Yeah.
Like, I do not have a budget for like a crew or anything. I'm like,
just you.
I have myself and an assistant.
Okay.
An assistant who actually ended up going to be an amazing photographer, but that and I was like, okay, and they're like, well, that means that he has to get the electric Cadillac out of storage and have it driven here. And I'm like, so he's gonna have his electric Cadillac driven here on a gas powered like a semi or whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, okay, so he's gonna be 4 hours late. I'm like,
oh no,
4 hours, okay. 4 hours late it is. And then that changed, so he didn't end up doing that. And then he showed up, and I'm like, great. He's just like late, but normal. Supposedly Neil Young late. And no, he went in and had lunch. He went and had lunch at the cafe for 2 hours. And then
I gotta get a turkey sandwich before I shoot these photos.
I'm hungry. But then and then he came out, and he was actually nice. Yeah, it was fun.
Oh.
He was funny. It was like a grandpa. It was him. But I think it helped to have Daniel Lenoir there too, because that guy was so nice and so like kind, and just like buffered the situation. But it was this is the photographer moment where I'm like, okay, this is awesome. I've got photos of both of them, but I need to get portraits. I don't need to. They just the article is about both of them.
Yeah.
I need to get portraits of them singularly. But if I ask Neil, like, hey, let's do some portraits, he's going to just walk out, because he's going to know. He's going to be like, this isn't just about, no.
Yeah.
I'm not letting you take a photo of me that you can sell later for something else. And so then I'm like, okay, how do I get them in a situation where I can pull over to the side and get just a photo
one at a
of
time.
Neil
Yep.
and just a photo of Daniel? And so I kind of, it was okay. I don't know. But there was a one thing, like I was shooting away. I'm like, I don't know how much time. He's like,
Just
man,
keep taking.
you're sure shooting a lot of photos.
So
And I'm
yeah,
like, yep. And he's like,
they don't pay me to not shoot photos.
yeah. He's like, this is a lot. Don't you think you got it by now? And I'm like, I don't know, man. He's like, I don't know. When do you think you got it? And I said, I don't know. When do you think a song is finished? And he goes, good point. And then we shot for another 10 minutes.
That's amazing.
And I was like, whoa, I can't believe he responded. I was like, good point.
The song's done when I fucking say it's done. It's done. Yeah. I'm out of here. Fuck you.
Yeah,
oh, that's
so
amazing. That's so cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was really honored that Pat took the time to jump on the mics, and it sounds like he's doing cool stuff. He's got a gallery there in England. I think he's based in England now, and he shot. I think through Modest Mouse, I think he became friends with Johnny Marr. So
right.
He shot all of Johnny Marr's guitars for a book or for a project they're doing.
That's right. Sounds amazing. Like all of his instruments.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. And then he's selling prints online. So you could get, if you are a fan of, DC, Riot Girl, all that stuff that, he sells giant prints he can make, in small batches, and you could get them framed.
He just said it takes a while.
Yeah. You gotta be patient with it, but still,
As it should.
I definitely perused the website for a long time. Like, ooh, this would be really fun.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to have one of those photos. But yeah, no, I was so stoked. I'm glad you dug it. I forgot I'd done this one a little while ago. I remembered I wanted to tell you, like, oh, I've interviewed. We should definitely do more. Maybe that's the next theme month. Maybe photographer month.
Photographer month. Oh, that would be awesome.
I feel like that's all part of it. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say too. When you're talking about like seeing the pictures of like Fugazi in the book and stuff, it's funny now at our age. We're older than they were then. Obviously, they're like in their 20s. But I always imagine, Ian MacKay and Guy, being older, like big brother kind of figures. But now to look back and see it and like, oh, they're just kids. They're just messing around, just playing around. And it's that funny feeling of like being able to recognize that and see them in a new light. That was never,
totally.
It wasn't possible. The other thing I was thinking too is like the photographer crew kind of idea, like being like playing music or really just doing anything in life. It's like, but definitely like in skateboarding or in any other kind of the sports where it's like you definitely need someone to be documenting it all. You need a filmer or you need a photographer friend. That's like kind of part of the whole culture of it. And I think it's unclear, when you're first starting out playing music, you wouldn't think like, oh, we need a photographer as part of the crew. But there's so many times, you need a photo for something, especially when you're starting out.
Totally.
You're always kind of like doing it, and you're also young and better looking than you're better looking than you'll ever be later. You don't think so at the time, but when you're first starting a band in your 20s, like all those photos are amazing. You're like, you weigh 130 pounds and you're just sweaty all the time. And you look tired and broke and hungry. And those photos always look amazing. You look back, you're like, oh, those are great.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that in Portland in the late 90s and looking at photos that were from the 80s and then just being like, taking photos, but being like fashion wise and stuff. And like, this isn't as interesting as it was then. It's like, because it's happening now and you're like, I don't know. I don't, and then I look back at those photos. I'm like, oh my God, it's so timely. Of like the trucker hats and the like baggy pants and the button ups and the just that whole moment of like, oh no, these moments are special later.
Thrift store fashion explosions and things. Yeah,
totally. And I do think, I actually think, oh my God, I'm forgetting his last name. Leo, from New York, who was in Kids.
Oh yeah, Leo Fitzpatrick. Yeah, he'd be great to have on too. I wanted to.
Yeah, he would be awesome. Because he actually just posted something recently, and he was just talking about photography and how he's like, he didn't take as many photos now, but that he was just like, it's so important as kids, if you are doing something creative or if you that like just document it, do something, document it, take pictures and keep them, because when you're older, you'll look back at those times and you'll find importance in things that you didn't think were important. But that
Salad
it's
days.
but that
When
it's
we're older, we will look back and laugh.
but that
Yeah.
it is important to do that because it does bring you back to a place, and it actually, like, I think the photography and the art and the music, like all of those things, they create, it's like a glue that keeps all these people together. And then eventually, like, people go off on their own thing, but it really is this like glue, this like the creativity creates these groups of people that end up working together and going off and starting all sorts of things, and moving away from there. And I think photography is kind of a massive part of that.
Yeah. It's really that thing the only way, to really have that moment, or something that reminds you of those things. Like Dean from No Age just posted or just sent me some photos. Like I think he was going through old boxes. He's been moving and I think organizing old stuff. So he went through some boxes and he just showed me photos of me that I'd never seen before. And it got
So
me thinking
crazy.
while we're thinking about all this stuff. It's like, because, we were a duo, and he and I were always, just taking pictures, whether it was on our phone or even digital cameras, or he'd always had a film camera. It was sort of the
Like a little
style to have
point and shoot.
the point and shoot style at the time. And
Yep.
he's always taken those things. But again, especially because there were the film little point and shoots, Yoshika things. I never saw them. I don't know if he would ever get them developed. I never knew what happened. I saw he always had one in his backpack or in his pocket. But then, but he must have got them developed and put them in a box somewhere at his mom's house. And then now he's going through them. And so it was funny to see photo. But what's funny is all of my photos are of Dean. And now, like, seeing his photos, I was like, oh yeah, those are all me.
That's funny. You guys need to do a book
that
of each of your photos of each other.
That's a great idea.
That would be fun.
I don't have
I
a
would
lot
love
of
to see that.
photos of my own collection, or photos that I take are never of me, but I have a million of, like, Dean sitting at a truck stop, Dean sitting at a laundromat, Dean, sitting backstage, Dean at a hotel. And then it was funny that all the ones that he was showing me his, I was like, oh yeah, that's me at a hotel. That's me at a laundromat. Oh yeah, that's me there. Like, that's the other side.
Probably
of
the same spot.
Yeah, the same thing. Like, I would take photos, but mine were always digital, and a lot of his were film. So it was funny, like, how it all came out. But you just never know. You just never know what's out there too. That's the funny part about those kinds of things. You go, wow, I really had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it is that, especially now, I mean, there's so many more photographs, right? I mean, there's like, I feel
Look
like
at this photograph.
there's like more photographs now are uploaded to the internet in a day than were taken from the beginning of time to like 1990. I mean, it's some crazy,
right?
thing. Up until the internet, there was like more photographs uploaded in one day or something on Instagram than were ever shot
from the invention of photography
past or something.
Some
crazy number. I'm sure you could look. I'm sure you could ask. You could ask Chat GPT, and they would give you the exact
some
number.
Bullshit number.
But it would make up a great number that you would believe.
Yeah, like, oh wow, it must be true. That's not online. But yeah, what is it all going to mean? Where is this all going to go? Like, all these photos. Oh, did you ever have like a Flickr account or Photo Bucket or any of these things?
I had a blog for a while, but then I always just had a website. I couldn't ever keep. I probably had a Flickr at some point.
I went down a Flickr hole or a Photo Bucket hole. Yeah, I went down a Photo Bucket hole, and I found it was wild because there was that time too. It was those pre social media. I think when No Age first started, playing a lot. And so there was a lot of people taking photos, but we wouldn't see them because there wasn't an Instagram, maybe if someone had a blog, but a lot of stuff got uploaded to these like Flickrs and things. And it's a funny, like, time capsule. If you just do a random Flickr search,
because you can search on
yeah. And I found a lot of stuff, and I was like, wow, I've never seen this photo. I remember that party. I remember the first part of that party, and the last part. Oh, there I am with a beer in my hand. Oh, there I am with a beer in my hand. Okay, then that's why I don't remember that part. Don't remember how the party ended, but I remember the beginning part of it. And you just see photos of yourself, like, wow, it's a whole other kind of
like Cobra Snake,
right? Yeah, those all must be out there
like
somewhere,
Mark.
Right?
I think that site's still up.
Oh my god,
I think he's still doing his thing. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was weird. It's weird to go from, I mean, it really is a pretty amazing time going from like the 90s to now and like seeing, I mean, I was just thinking that today because I was listening to something about Chat GPT and rockets and like something else. I'm like, oh yeah, this is like all this stuff that we were talking about when we were kids is actually like the aliens, and we're going to Mars, and there's landing stuff on the moon, and like oh yeah, this is like there's like Chat GPT, like you can just talk to your computer and it
our
just answers you back with stuff.
Our new robot overlords.
Yeah.
Having to escape
I mean,
the planet because of the environmental damage that's irreversible at this point, and we'll need to look for another planet to terraform. All
super
that fun stuff of being
super fun stuff.
Yeah. All those science fiction movies that we didn't pay attention to and didn't heed the call of, and then they've all come true now.
Yeah, and then turns out like allowing everybody access to all the tools doesn't really necessarily make any better art. It just makes more of it.
Oh, all the good stuff.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to have some kind of like perspective on that stuff, and I don't know if I'm able to at this point, but I think there's got to be some bigger picture to it all, like a more macro view of it. But I just think, just like, back then when stuff was going on, it's like, oh yeah, the social media thing, that might be fun. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, like, oh, there's a career here. Like, but at the same time, when like NFTs and Web3, like, oh, then maybe that's the new Instagram. That's the new social media age. We've now entered this age. Yeah. And then you go, oh no, that went away. We're back to here.
Yeah.
Like,
nope. In 1 week, that was gone. Turns out that was a money grab.
Yeah. But who would have known, you know what I mean? I think that's how I looked at, like, whatever, like Friendster, MySpace, Instagram, all these things are like, that's the thing that's what's going to change the world.
Yeah.
Like in the website with a bunch of like kids taking pictures of themselves, or people taking pictures of their food. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have like all these food pictures with bad filters. What are they called? The Filtertrons, or what are the things?
That's now how we're going to market our whole lives.
That's like, if you had to pick
that's what our job.
One dumb thing that came out in your 20s that was going to change the world, like I would not have picked the like avocado toast selfie platform. Like, or
Amazon, the bookstore, the digital bookstore.
Yeah. Or the people that mail you DVDs and come back, and that's going to take down all of television. There'll be no longer be television, the thing that's existed forever with rabbit ears. Now it's all going to be something else because one guy started mailing DVDs to you.
It turns out people like convenience.
I guess so. That was always the worst part about the Netflix thing, though, is like you'd put the movie, like the serious movie on, like, ooh, this is Criterion. It's going to be great. It's going to be subtitled Japanese. And then you'd get it on a random Wednesday. You're like, I'm so tired. Like, I can't watch this movie. The subtitles. Yeah. Like, this looks like a great movie. You'd hold on to it for like 3 weeks, but you can't get another one until you return that one.
Or you'd get the scratched one.
Oh, God. I think I probably put more scratches on them than, or you have to find a mailbox to return it to. Like, I'm just driving around with in my car, like sitting on the passenger seat of my car for like 2 weeks. God. Like, I don't know. I got to find a thing. I should have put it with my outgoing mail, but I don't know what is going to happen.
The amount of Netflix like CDs that are just under people's car seats still to this day.
Or you rip the envelope open the wrong way, so then you got to put it back together the other way.
Remember, you had to
open it one way and then flip it around and put it back the other way. It was pretty ingenious, but you have to realize you're all like stone drunk, kids trying to watch.
Remember back in the day,
Chappelle Show.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Trying to figure it out.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
These are the things that I think if anything that's the lesson of our youth, of like, you never know which technology is going to become your new boss. Is going to be is going to redefine all of the industry around you.
And also do things in real life, because if they cut the power, none of this ever exists.
Right.
Make sure you know how to fix your own car to a certain extent.
That's one thing I learned from being broke, was how to fix my brakes, how to put new brake pads on, and then alternators and starters, because every cheap car, like, those are the things that would like.
Oh, I don't know how to do that, but you're right.
The alternator start. It's well, for most. I mean, again, this was back 30 years ago, but those were always like 2 or 3 bolts. And they're always connected, and it was like the easiest thing. Once you know what one looks like, you can open it up and go, oh, that's an alternator, that's a starter. and the
And
one charges the battery, the alternator, and the starters. So if you get the click, if you can't even, if it doesn't do anything, that. Yeah,
that's the alternator, right?
Well, no, if it's exactly the alternator is the repeating click. If you just get the one thing, like it won't even turn. If it won't do that, if it won't even start, then that's your starter. If you get the click like it's trying to start, that's your alternator.
Okay.
So that was how, and then there are only like 2 or 3 bolts for each of those things. But I remember once I figured that out, because it was just so broke. And I had somebody show it to me once. I'm like, okay, I can remember this. And I would end up doing it for friends' cars too. Like just when I worked at Amoeba, it'd be like, my car didn't start this morning. I was like, it's probably a starter or an alternator.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll come over. Let's go figure it out. And then we'd go there and they're like, oh yeah, it's this thing. And we'd go, I'd drive them to AutoZone. And like, it's $30. Cool. Let's do it. And they're like, wait, that's it? I'm like, I don't know. Pay the guy the 30. Let's see what happens. And I would go like put it in.
It does sound like a good business. It sounds like a good hustle. Randy Randall's starters and alternators.
And then brake pads. Yeah. The other thing too, like, oh, my car like does this shudder when I try to stop. I'm like, it's probably brake pads. But the
brake pads easy. Brake pads easy.
Yeah,
to fix?
the drum pads weren't. But
don't you have to bleed the brakes or anything?
You just like when those C clamps, like a clamp. You just push the caliper back in, and then flip one pad out. Put the next pad back in, then step on the thing and it goes back together. It was so easy. You put a little bit of goo on there, a little bit of like they give you this little blue goo that comes with the packs of it all.
I got to get new brakes pretty soon. Maybe I should.
Yeah, I
do live on a mountain. I don't know if I want to.
You might want to. Yeah, you don't trust yourself.
I don't want to do my first brakes on my before I go down 5,000 feet to the bottom
snowy mountain top. Yeah, maybe you get the right guy to do it.
Turns out I don't know how to redo my brakes.
Well, it got to a point too with me where we were just touring so much where I just didn't want I had money and didn't have a lot of time. I was like, I'd rather just pay somebody $100 to fix the brakes, because then it would take an afternoon. You'd have to jack the car. I did it all by hand. Take the little jack one tire at a time. Take all and I didn't have anything remote. I'd take the big crossbar thing. Take each bolt off one at a time. Like this was a broke person with a lot of time on his hand could do all these jobs, because it was
no kids.
No money. You had no money, but you had a lot of time. And your friends would buy you a beer for fixing their car. I'm like, sure. I wasn't doing anything else today.
Just drink the beer after you fix the car.
Right. Yeah. That's usually the good order of operations. Well, we wasted a whole hour here talking, but we probably talked more about Pat than we talk about most people.
The most guests. For sure. It
was pretty good. I'm proud of us. We stayed on topic. I don't know who's coming up next week. I still got to figure it out. I don't know.
Cool.
I got a bunch in the hopper that we can do.
Awesome.
But yeah, I feel like there was a good response to the Providence thing. I think that was kind of fun, telling a type of story or an oral history of a particular, place and time.
Love it. Yeah,
that's kind of
totally
fun. Yeah,
I agree.
We should think of another one. I know. I was taking some notes here. Definitely, I think there's a bunch of. We'll return to our randomness for a few months, and then if we think of something,
figure out a good one.
Yeah. If anybody has any ideas, write us on
summer.
Write us on our Hyphenate halftime. Is that correct? At gmail.com? Hyphenate halftime at gmail.com.
I don't know. Yeah.
That sounds right. And then
look it up. You all have the internet.
Yeah. Or just find us on Instagram. I'm at Randy S. Randall, and you are at Aaron Farley with 4 E's.
Yep.
How many E's are in Aaron?
7 A's, 4 E's, and 13 Y's.
There you go. Perfect. Awesome. All right. We will see you on the next episode.